Right, hi all. I'm doing a video this time on third parties in American politics. Apologies that it's not a proper full screen, but um, I am going to go through and show you a couple of the slides and talk through some things. That's why I've done it like this. But it relates quite closely to your booklet, so you can compare the two and think about it. And really, with third parties in American politics, what you think about is, do they matter? Do they, you know, do they play a role? Because actually, the Republican and Democrat parties are so huge. And you think about in British politics, the role of the Lib Dems being in coalition not too long ago. You think of the impact of someone like a UKIP in bringing about um, the Brexit vote. So we can say, look, in the UK, third parties can play a part, especially with devolution. So think about the role of the DUP in a confidence and supply agreement. Think about the role of the SNP. You know how many MPs they've had in the last few elections, um, and what that could lead to regarding devolution or independence for Scotland. So there's some real power in third parties in Britain. But does that exist in America? I mean, one of the things is there are huge numbers of third parties. But one of the key things you have to think about is this idea that the two main parties are both sort of what we call big tent or catch-all parties. They have to appeal to huge amounts of people. And so if we take the Democrat Party, and if you take the most recent presidential, um, uh, the battle for who's going to be the presidential candidate, what you have is someone who a lot of Americans believe is a centrist in Joe Biden. You have a staunch liberal in Elizabeth Warren and a socialist, big socialist, in Bernie Sanders. Now, in the UK, you might look at those three and think there is no, could those three people be in the same party? Possibly in the Labour Party, um, maybe in one of the devolved parties, but they, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, have to cover as many grounds as possible, and in that way, as this PowerPoint is going to show you, they cover a lot of these small parties. So things like the Libertarian Party, there are a lot of people within the Republicans who are actually libertarian or very libertarian, but being with the Libertarian Party, you're unlikely to have a say or have a chance to make changes. Um, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. But to begin with, we will do this a lot more when we do elections and a lot more detail. But for now, what you just got to think about is the Electoral College. So each state has a certain number of Electoral College votes, as you can see here. Those with bigger population tend to have more Electoral College votes. And this is how it works. If you have more people, you get more Electoral College votes. Really simple. So California has they all have two senators, so they all get at least two Electoral College votes, plus the number of electoral districts. So the more people you have, the more districts you need, the more Electoral College votes you get. So if you look here, Montana up here 3. So, I mean, this is an impact in campaigning as well. That actually, is it worth spending much time in Montana campaigning? There's only 3 Electoral College votes. What about California with 55? That's more important, and that is why you get places like Florida, Texas, and California, with huge numbers of Electoral College votes become really important. Now, Florida is particularly interesting when we come on to Ralph Nader in a little bit. But the other important thing about this Electoral College vote is you need a certain number of these to become president. But if you win a state, you win all those votes. So if you win California, you get 55 Electoral College votes. It doesn't matter if, as in this case, Barack Obama got 60% of the support in California, Mitt Romney got 37%, doesn't matter. Obama gets all 55 Electoral College votes. Now, this is important when it comes to third party votes, because actually, under this system, a third party, it's actually very difficult to become president. Because remember, you've got to get 270 of these to become president. And if you win Montana, you get 3 Electoral College votes. That's it. you're not going to win the presidency with 3 electoral college votes. So if you are a voter, as much as you might be a libertarian or a green, you might say, well, is it what what is the benefit of me voting for that person? Even if they win my state, are they going to win another 250, 260 electoral college votes? And that plays into the voting. I mean, similar in the UK, you might, on one hand, people say, well, I actually really like the Green Party, their ideas, but if I vote for them, it looks good on their national profile. They've got, 1 million votes, 2 million votes, whatever. But if they only get one seat, can they make a difference? Or if they get no seats and 2 million votes, can they make a difference? Is my vote better served voting for Labour or Lib Dems or Conservatives? And so the third parties have a similar problem. And the best example of this is this guy, Ross Perot, in 1992. What he brought to that election was very different to what the other two candidates were bringing. And in a way, there's a little bit Donald Trump here, not from Trump's behaviours or his ideology, but his background, not in political office, but successful in business. And he had very clear ideas from what he saw in the world of business and how you could transfer that into politics. And it was popular. It was popular. He got grassroots support. Lots of people said, this guy's saying something different. This guy's, I'm fed up with politicians being a certain way. This guy's saying something different. I like what he is saying. And he funded his own campaign. He relied on grassroots, on people for support, to spread the word, to maybe give out leaflets, but a lot of the funding came from him. And he was able to participate in the presidential debates. But if we think back to here, remember what I said, you need 270 of these to win. And if you do well in a certain state, it doesn't matter if you do well, you have to win that state to win the votes. And this is what the problem of Ross Perot. If you see, Bill Clinton got 43% of the vote, George Bush got 37.5% of the vote, Ross Perot got 16.9% of the vote. But when you transfer that to the Electoral College, Ross Perot got no Electoral College votes despite having 17% of the vote. So statistically, and actually just from a results perspective, has he failed? Well, he has. He didn't get any Electoral College votes. He didn't become president. He hasn't. Well, but actually, for someone like Ross Perot, winning can come in different ways. And what he's done here, this figure becomes really interesting now, is because suddenly whoever becomes president, and in this case it was Bill Clinton, knows that Ross Perot has people who back him. He has people who support him. And he has to make sure that these people are on his side. And so what Bill Clinton does, if we go back to this slide, think about what Ross Perot wanted. Sorry, wrong slide, this slide. Reducing the federal budget, economic nationalism, tightening the war on drugs. What does Bill Clinton do? He starts talking about reducing the deficit. Bill Clinton has to listen to what Ross Perot is saying, and he actually brings in some of his ideas. And this is again that problem of the third parties, is that if you as a third party are saying something that people are listening to and people like, there's nothing to stop one of the big two parties, Republicans and Democrats, to take on that same idea and pull the rug from under your feet. And at that point, it becomes a lot trickier. But actually, we can talk about some of the more recent ones as well. And the idea of the fluidity of third parties and the big parties. And you've got to remember that these big parties are catch-all. The idea is that they want to get as many people supporting them, and so they have so many different masks. So a couple of people we're going to look at. One is this guy here, the man with the world's most American smile, Rocky De La Fuente. It's a great name as well, I think. But if we look down here, in 2016, Rocky De La Fuente came fourth in the Democratic presidential primaries. Now he was, 16.8 million votes behind Hillary Clinton. So On the positive side, you'd say he was fourth. On the negative side, you'd say he was 16 million votes down Hillary Clinton. And he did better than Vermin Supreme down here. So that's one positive for him. But Roque de la Fuente, so Democratic presidential primary in 2016. However, he also wanted to try and become a Florida Democratic senator in 2016. He didn't get that either. But here's the interesting thing. He actually stood for a third party. He wasn't like just stood for one third party. He was the presidential candidate for two separate third parties, for both the American Delta Party and the Reform Party. And so if you're a third party, you might have a candidate such as Roque de la Fuente, and even if he's the presidential candidate for another party, you could say, actually, if we go do this together, we have a better chance. Now, when you're considering that Donald Trump got 62 million and Hillary Clinton got 65 million, Roque de la Fuente got 33,000. So, and that's with the support of two parties. So it's not close. But you can see this fluidity that this person was a Democrat candidate or tried to be a Democrat candidate and then led for two separate parties. Now, American Delta and Reform are not the same party. They're not agreeing the same things. There are overlaps there, but you can see that this sort of fluidity about it. And another really interesting one is this guy, Ralph Nader. So if we have a look at this is the electoral history of Ralph Nader. I'm using Wikipedia because actually it's really useful to research some of these things. It shows it in a really a way that's easy for me to show you. So 1972 Democratic National Convention for Vice President. Ralph Nader. So remember, Democratic National Convention, so Democrat Party 1972. 1992 Republican New Hampshire primary, Ralph Nader. So all of a sudden, we've someone who's in the Democratic Party. A few years later, Ralph Nader doing well for the Republicans. Now that is as a write-in candidate, so it's not necessarily what he would ask for. But again, Democratic candidate primary as a write-in candidate. But if we head down here, so we go back to the Reform Party, who we just talked about with Roque de la Fuente. Actually, presidential primaries in 1996 for the Reform Party, Ralph Nader becomes their presidential candidate. In 1996, however, he was also there as a write-in candidate there, but in 1996, he's also presidential primaries for the Green Party. And there he is, 1996, United States presidential election, Ralph Nader for the Greens. And then he goes on as an independent. And what you've got there with Ralph Nader is someone who, again, slide, someone again who shows that fluidity of the third parties. You may believe in something very specific, which makes you a Green, or makes you a socialist, or makes you, someone for the Reform Party. But you easily go from one of those into one of the main parties because even though you might be a libertarian, you know that you can get libertarian support in the Republican Party and you can pursue libertarian ideas within that party because of the catch-all nature of them. But Ralph Nader, again, another one why it's interesting is that third parties can have an impact. So we talk about this idea of a kingmaker, someone who might not win, but could take enough votes from one person to help the other person win. Now, George Bush beat Al Gore by 537 votes in Florida. I should have been Florida, let me just jot in. So those of you who watched the documentary that we put, where we gave you the choice of watching a few different ones, those of you who watched this one in 2000, this was really controversial due to the way the tickets were punched, whether the votes were counted, really controversial. So he beat by 537 votes. But Ralph Nader had 97,000 votes in 2000. Now, if you look at who is representing and the kind of person that voted for him, if Ralph Nader had not been there, and if third parties hadn't really been to the fore, most of those votes would have gone to Al Gore, making Al Gore president in 2000. And so what we've got there is showing that actually third parties can have an impact. If you look at Ross Perot, if a third party becomes popular, then it's in the interest of the main parties to take their ideas and use them. Now, if you're a third party candidate, if you something you really believe in, that is then taken on by the big parties, then you sort of got what you wanted. It's just not you doing it. And the flip side is here with Ralph Nader, who um, who did get a fair few votes. I mean, nothing in the range that these two were getting, but it was enough votes to take the presidency from Al Gore and give it to George Bush.